Ethan Cole stared at the holographic star map floating above his desk. It was a familiar sight, one he had seen every day for the past 3 years aboard the research vessel Aurora. The map showed the vast expanse of human space, glowing with clusters of stars, planets, and trade routes. But there was something else, a sharp, unyielding line that cut through the galaxy like a scar. Everyone called it the Edge. Beyond it, the map faded into blankness, as if the universe itself stopped existing. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He wasn't sure why, but tonight, the Edge felt different. Maybe it was because he had spent hours analyzing strange readings near its boundary. Or maybe it was the way the sensors on the Aurora kept picking up faint signals that didn't match anything in the database. Whatever it was, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the Edge wasn't just an empty void. There was something out there, something hidden. Still obsessing over that thing, came a voice from behind him. Ethan turned to see Rachel Monroe leaning against the doorway. Her arms were crossed, and her expression was a mix of curiosity and mild annoyance. Rachel was his colleague and closest friend on the ship, though she often teased him about his habit of chasing mysteries no one else cared about. "It's not nothing," Ethan said, gesturing toward the map. "Look at these readings. They're coming from right outside the Edge." Rachel walked over and glanced at the data scrolling across his screen. She frowned slightly but quickly shrugged it off. "It's probably just interference or some old satellite drifting out there. You know how jumpy the sensors get when we're this close to the Edge." "But what if it's not?" Ethan pressed. "What if there's something real out there? Something we've been ignoring?" Rachel sighed and sat down across from him. "Ethan, you've been here long enough to know the rules. The Edge is off limits. Always has been. No one goes beyond it. Not ships, not probes, not even radio waves. That's just how it is." "Yeah, but why?" Ethan asked, his voice rising with frustration. "Why does everyone just accept it without asking questions? Doesn't it bother you that we don't know what's out there?" Rachel hesitated, her usual confidence wavering. For a moment, she looked almost uneasy. "Of course it bothers me," she admitted quietly. "But I've heard stories, Ethan. Stories about people who tried to find out. Scientists, explorers, they disappeared, vanished without a trace. Some say the government silenced them. Others think, well, who knows what happens beyond the Edge?" Ethan shook his head. He didn't want to believe in conspiracy theories or ghost stories. He wanted answers. And the more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that the Edge wasn't natural. Someone, or something, had put it there. "Look," Rachel said, standing up, "I'm not saying you're wrong to wonder. But be careful, okay? People around here don't take kindly to those kinds of questions. Just keep your head down and focus on your work." As Rachel left the room, Ethan stared back at the map. The Edge loomed before him, a silent barrier separating humanity from the unknown. Somewhere deep inside, he knew he wouldn't let it rest. Whatever secrets lay beyond that line, he was determined to uncover them, even if it meant risking everything. For now, though, he would have to tread carefully. The last thing he needed was to draw attention to himself. But as the ship drifted silently through the stars, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. What was out there? And why did no one dare to look? End of document ***. Ethan couldn't let it go. The strange readings near the Edge haunted him, replaying in his mind like a puzzle he couldn't solve. Late at night, when the rest of the crew was asleep, he sat alone in the Aurora's dimly lit lab, sifting through old files and logs. Most of them were routine reports or technical manuals, but one name kept appearing in the margins: Operation Horizon. At first, Ethan thought it was just another forgotten project from decades ago. But the more he dug, the more unusual it seemed. Operation Horizon wasn't listed in any official records, and the few mentions he found were vague, almost cryptic. It involved sending a probe beyond the Edge, a mission that had been abruptly canceled without explanation. Ethan's heart raced as he pieced together fragments of information. If this probe had actually gone beyond the edge, what had it discovered? And why had its findings been erased? Rachel noticed his growing obsession. One evening, she walked into the lab to find him surrounded by scattered papers and glowing screens. "You're still at it?" she asked, her tone somewhere between concern and exasperation. "I think I'm onto something," Ethan said, pointing to a partially decrypted log on his screen. "This probe, they sent it out there, Rachel, beyond the edge. And then, nothing. All the data cuts off." Rachel frowned. "That doesn't prove anything. Maybe the probe malfunctioned, or maybe it hit some kind of interference. Or maybe someone didn't want us to see what it found," Ethan countered. His eyes burned with determination. "Think about it. Why would they erase all the records if there wasn't something important?" Rachel hesitated, glancing nervously toward the door. Lowering her voice, she said, "Look, I get it. You're curious. But you need to be careful. People don't talk about the edge for a reason. There are rumors, Ethan. Stories about researchers who disappeared after asking too many questions." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not afraid of stories. I need to know the truth." The next day, Ethan decided to take a risk. He accessed the ship's secure archives, bypassing several layers of encryption to reach classified files. What he found chilled him to the bone. Operation Horizon had indeed launched a probe decades earlier, equipped with advanced sensors and communication systems. The mission had been top secret, funded directly by Earth's governing council, but the logs ended abruptly, replaced by heavily redacted sections marked classified. Among the fragments, Ethan uncovered a single line that made his blood run cold. "Anomalous contact detected. Further investigation terminated by order of command." Contact. With what? And why had the mission been shut down so suddenly? As Ethan copied the files onto a portable drive, a shadow fell across the room. Startled, he turned to see Grace Bennett standing in the doorway. Grace was a historian who occasionally visited the Aurora to study ancient space treaties. She was known for her sharp mind and quiet demeanor, but now her expression was unreadable. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Ethan hesitated, unsure whether to trust her, but something in her eyes told him she already knew, or suspected, what he was up to. "I'm trying to figure out what's beyond the edge," he admitted. "Do you know anything about Operation Horizon?" Grace stepped closer, closing the door behind her. "That's dangerous territory," she said softly. "But yes, I've heard whispers." Early agreements between Earth's governments included clauses about restricting travel beyond certain coordinates. They never explained why. Ethan felt a surge of hope. "Will you help me? I can't do this alone." Grace hesitated, weighing the risks. Finally, she nodded. "All right, but we have to be careful. If anyone finds out—" "They won't," Ethan promised. "Not until we have answers." As the two began their collaboration, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every step they took brought them closer to the truth, but also deeper into danger. Whatever secrets lay hidden beyond the edge, Ethan was determined to uncover them, no matter the cost. End of document. Grace Bennett was not the type to jump into risky situations without thinking. She liked facts, evidence, and careful planning. But as she sat in the Aurora's lab with Ethan, reviewing the scattered pieces of Operation Horizon, she felt a strange pull, a mix of curiosity and unease. The more she read, the more she realized that the edge wasn't just a random boundary. It had been deliberately placed there for a reason. "This is bigger than we thought," Grace said, pointing to a faded document on the screen. "Look at this. These early treaties mention something called the Protected Zone. They don't explain what it is, but they make it clear that crossing it is forbidden." Ethan leaned closer, his brow furrowed. Protected from what? And who decided it needed protecting? "That's the question, isn't it?" Grace replied. Whoever made these agreements had power. A lot of it. They didn't just draw a line. They enforced it. And they made sure no one asked questions. Rachel entered the room, carrying a tray of coffee. She had been quieter since learning about Ethan's investigation, her usual confidence replaced by a cautious watchfulness. Setting the tray down, she glanced at the documents on the screen. You're really going to keep digging into this, aren't you? We have to, Ethan said firmly. If there's something out there, something dangerous, or amazing, we deserve to know. Humanity deserves to know. Rachel sighed, shaking her head. I hope you're right. But I've heard things, Ethan. People talk. There are stories about researchers who got too close to the truth. They disappeared, just vanished. No explanations, no investigations. Nothing. Grace frowned, turning to face Rachel. Do you think it's true? That someone, or something, is silencing them? I don't know, Rachel admitted. But I do know this. If you two are serious about finding answers, you'd better be ready for whatever comes next. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. He knew the risks, but he couldn't turn back now. Not when they were so close to uncovering the truth. Later that evening, Grace brought up another piece of the puzzle. She had been studying old communication records and found faint traces of encrypted messages linked to Operation Horizon. With Ethan's help, she began decoding them. The process was slow and frustrating, but eventually, fragments of text began to emerge. Listen to this, Grace said, reading aloud. Probe detected unknown energy signature. Possible contact initiated. Further analysis required. She paused, looking at Ethan. Then there's this. Signal lost. Mission terminated by directive. Ethan's heart raced. Contact. With what? And why did they shut it down? Grace shook her head. I don't know, but this proves something was out there. Something intelligent enough to communicate. As they worked, Ethan started noticing strange patterns in the data. Certain sequences repeated themselves, almost like a code. He ran them through the ship's translation software, hoping to find some kind of meaning. To his surprise, the program identified faint similarities to ancient human languages. What does that mean? Grace asked, staring at the results. It means, Ethan hesitated, unsure how to explain it. It means whoever, or whatever, is out there might have been trying to talk to us. That night, both Ethan and Grace had trouble sleeping. Vague images filled their dreams, glowing symbols, shadowy figures, and voices speaking in a language they couldn't understand. When they met in the lab the next morning, they realized they weren't alone. Rachel looked pale and shaken, as if she had experienced something similar. I dreamed about the edge, she confessed quietly. It wasn't empty. There was something there, waiting. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Whatever was beyond the edge, it seemed to be reaching out, not just to them, but to humanity itself. And the closer they got to the truth, the more they began to wonder if they were ready for what they might find. *** end of document ***. The dreams didn't stop. Night after night, Ethan, Grace, and Rachel found themselves haunted by the same images. Glowing symbols floating in darkness, whispers they couldn't quite understand, and a deep, unshakable feeling that something was watching them. It was as if the edge had reached into their minds, planting seeds of curiosity and fear. Ethan tried to ignore it, focusing instead on decoding the mysterious signals from Operation Horizon. He spent hours in the lab, running simulations and cross-referencing data. But no matter how hard he worked, the answers remained just out of reach. Grace stayed by his side, her sharp mind picking up details he might have missed. Even Rachel joined in occasionally, though her unease was growing with each passing day. We're missing something, Ethan muttered one evening, rubbing his tired eyes. These signals, they're not random. They're a message. Grace nodded, pointing to a string of numbers on the screen. This sequence keeps repeating. It's almost like coordinates. Coordinates? Rachel asked, leaning over their shoulders. You think it's pointing to something beyond the edge? It's possible, Grace said thoughtfully. If whoever sent this wanted us to find something, they'd need a way to guide us. Ethan felt a surge of excitement. If they could pinpoint the location, maybe they could figure out what, or who, was waiting on the other side. But before they could act on the discovery, an unexpected visitor arrived aboard the Aurora *. Admiral Carter Hayes stepped onto the ship with an air of authority that silenced everyone in the room. A tall man with sharp features and piercing eyes, Hayes commanded respect and fear. He wasted no time getting to the point. I've heard rumors about your little project, he said, his voice calm but firm. You've been digging where you shouldn't, Cole. Ethan froze, unsure how much Hayes knew. Sir, I'm just analyzing old mission data. Nothing unusual. Hayes raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Don't play games with me. I know you've accessed classified files, and I know you've been asking questions about the edge. Grace stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. With all due respect, Admiral, isn't it our job to seek knowledge? If there's something out there, don't we have a responsibility to investigate? Hayes turned his gaze to her, his expression unreadable. Knowledge can be dangerous, Ms. Bennett. Some things are better left unknown. But why? Ethan demanded, unable to stay silent any longer. Why does everyone treat the edge like some kind of forbidden zone? What are you so afraid of? For a moment, Hayes looked almost sympathetic. Then his face hardened again. Let me make this clear. Crossing the edge is not an option. Whatever lies beyond it, humanity isn't ready for it. Trust me when I say that ignorance is the safest path. With that, he turned and left, leaving the three of them stunned and more determined than ever to uncover the truth. Later that night, Ethan paced the lab, his mind racing. He knows something, he said finally. Whatever's out there, it's real. And it's big. Grace nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she reviewed the decoded signals. If Hayes thinks we'll stop because of his warnings, he doesn't know us very well. Rachel hesitated, her usual confidence wavering. What if he's right, though? What if we're not ready for whatever's waiting for us? We may never be ready, Ethan admitted. But sitting here, hiding behind the edge, it's not living. We owe it to ourselves, to humanity, to find out the truth. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. Using the coordinates from the decoded signals, he plotted a course toward the edge. Grace helped him prepare the Aurora for the journey, while Rachel reluctantly agreed to assist, though her worry was evident. As the ship moved closer to the boundary, strange things began to happen. The sensors picked up distortions in space-time, and faint echoes of those haunting voices filled the corridors. It was as if the edge itself was alive, warning them to turn back. But Ethan refused to listen. Whatever waited beyond the edge, he was determined to face it head-on. For better or worse, the truth was within reach, and nothing would stop him from finding it. End of document ***. The Aurora approached the edge cautiously, its engines humming softly as the ship drifted closer to the mysterious boundary. Ethan sat in the control room, his hands gripping the console tightly. The glowing line on the star map grew larger, more defined, until it filled the viewports. Beyond it, space seemed darker, quieter, almost unnatural. It was like staring into an endless void, one that swallowed light and sound alike. Grace stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the readings flashing across the monitors. Something's happening, she said quietly. The sensors are picking up gravitational anomalies. It's like the edge is pushing back. Rachel hovered near the doorway, her arms crossed and her face pale. She hadn't spoken much since they started this journey, but her unease was obvious. Are we sure about this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if Hayes was right? What if we're not ready for whatever's out there? Ethan didn't answer immediately. He knew the risks. They all did, but turning back now felt impossible. We've come too far to stop, he said finally. "If we leave, we'll never know. And I can't live with that." As the ship drew nearer, strange things began to occur. The lights flickered, and ghostly shapes appeared on the monitors, shadowy figures that vanished as quickly as they came. Ethan tried to ignore them, focusing instead on navigating the ship through the growing turbulence. But even he couldn't deny the feeling that something, or someone, was watching them. Then, without warning, the Aurora shuddered violently. Alarms blared, and red warning lights flashed throughout the cabin. "We're caught in some kind of field," Grace shouted, frantically typing commands into the console. "It's pulling us toward the edge." "Can we break free?" Ethan asked, his voice tense. "I don't know," Grace replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "I've never seen anything like this before." Rachel grabbed onto a nearby railing as the ship rocked again. "This is insane. We need to get out of here." But Ethan refused to give up. "Not yet. Keep trying." For several agonizing minutes, the Aurora struggled against the invisible force dragging it forward. Just when it seemed like they might be pulled into the void, the turbulence subsided, leaving the ship floating silently near the edge. The crew stared out the viewport in stunned silence. Drifting in front of them was a derelict probe, its surface pitted and scarred from years of exposure to space. "That's it," Grace breathed. "That's the probe from Operation Horizon." Ethan nodded, his heart pounding. "Let's bring it aboard." Using the ship's robotic arm, they carefully retrieved the probe and brought it into the cargo bay. Inside, they found its memory banks still intact, though heavily damaged. Working together, Ethan and Grace managed to extract fragments of data, piecing together grainy footage captured during the probe's final moments. The images were startling. The probe had encountered humanoid figures bathed in pulsating light, their forms shifting and shimmering as if made of energy. They communicated through bursts of light and sound, patterns that matched the signals Ethan and Grace had been decoding. Then suddenly, the footage cut off, replaced by static. "What does it mean?" Rachel asked, her voice trembling. "Who, or what, are they?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted, "but they're intelligent, and they've been trying to communicate with us." Before they could process what they had discovered, the ship's systems began malfunctioning again. The lights dimmed, and the temperature dropped sharply. A low hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Then a voice, clear and resonant, spoke inside their minds. "You have crossed the boundary," it said. "Turn back or face the consequences." The three of them exchanged panicked glances. Whatever was speaking to them, it wasn't human, and it didn't sound friendly. "We have to decide," Ethan said urgently. "Do we retreat, or do we keep going?" The voice lingered in their minds, echoing long after the words had faded. It wasn't angry or threatening, but its tone carried an undeniable weight, a warning they couldn't ignore. Ethan, Grace, and Rachel stood frozen, staring at one another as the hum in the air slowly died down. The ship's systems flickered back to life, but the tension in the room remained thick. "We should listen," Rachel said finally, her voice shaking. "That thing, whatever it is, doesn't want us here. If we keep going, we might not survive." Ethan clenched his fists, torn between fear and determination. "But what if this is exactly why we're here? What if crossing the edge is the only way to find out the truth?" Grace stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. "Both of you are right. This is dangerous, but we've already come so far. If we turn back now, we'll never know what's waiting for us. And maybe that's what they want, to scare us away." Rachel shook her head, frustration creeping into her voice. "You're talking about risking our lives based on a hunch. We don't even know what's out there. And we won't unless we try," Ethan countered. His eyes burned with resolve. "I didn't bring us this far just to give up." For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the ship's engines. Finally, Grace nodded. If we're doing this, we need to be smart about it. Whatever's beyond the edge, it's powerful. We can't afford to make mistakes. Reluctantly, Rachel agreed. Fine. But if things go wrong, don't say I didn't warn you. With their decision made, Ethan guided the Aurora through the remnants of the gravitational field surrounding the edge. As they crossed the boundary, the ship jolted violently once more before emerging into a breathtaking yet alien landscape. The stars here were arranged in patterns that defied logic, forming intricate shapes across the sky. Glowing nebulae pulsed with colors unseen in human space, and strange crystalline structures floated silently in the void. "It's beautiful," Grace whispered, her voice filled with awe, "and completely unnatural." As they explored the area, the sensors picked up traces of advanced technology embedded within the environment. Strange energy signatures radiated from the floating structures, suggesting they were not natural formations but constructs of some kind. Ethan felt a surge of excitement mixed with unease. They weren't alone here. Then, without warning, the ship's systems began to malfunction again. The lights dimmed and the temperature plummeted. A shimmering figure materialized in front of them, a being of pure energy, its form constantly shifting and changing. Its presence was overwhelming, filling the room with a sense of immense power. "You have entered forbidden territory," the entity said, its voice resonating in their minds. "I am the Guardian. Why have you come?" Ethan swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. "We came seeking answers. Humanity deserves to know what lies beyond the edge." The Guardian studied them, its gaze piercing. "Your species is young, fragile. The universe beyond this point holds dangers you cannot comprehend. My purpose is to protect you until you are ready." "Ready for what?" Grace asked, her voice steady despite her fear. "For the truth," the Guardian replied cryptically. "But knowledge comes at a cost. Are you prepared to pay it?" Ethan exchanged glances with Grace and Rachel. He knew the answer, even if the others weren't sure. "Yes," he said firmly. "We're ready." The Guardian hesitated, as if weighing their resolve. Then, with a wave of its luminous form, the ship was enveloped in light. When the glow faded, they found themselves drifting deeper into the unknown expanse, surrounded by wonders and dangers they could scarcely imagine. The Aurora floated silently in the strange, alien expanse beyond the edge. Ethan, Grace, and Rachel stared out the viewport in stunned silence, their eyes wide with wonder and fear. The world around them was unlike anything they had ever seen. Glowing nebulae stretched across the horizon, their colors shifting like living paintings. Massive crystalline structures floated in the void, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with energy. It was beautiful, but it also felt wrong, as if they were intruding on something sacred. "This is incredible," Grace murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's like stepping into another dimension." Rachel nodded slowly, though her expression remained uneasy. "Yeah, incredible, but also terrifying. Look at those things. They're not natural. Someone, or something, built them." Ethan didn't respond. His attention was focused on the sensors, which were lighting up with readings he couldn't fully understand. Strange energy signatures radiated from every direction, overlapping and intertwining in ways that defied logic. Whatever this place was, it wasn't empty. Something, or someone, was watching them. As they drifted further into the expanse, the ship's systems began behaving erratically. The lights flickered, and faint whispers filled the air, echoing through the corridors. At first, the voices were indistinct, but soon they grew clearer, speaking in a language none of them recognized. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. "Do you hear that?" he asked, glancing at the others. Grace nodded, her face pale. "It's like a conversation, but I can't make out the words." Rachel backed away from the viewport, her hands trembling. "This feels like a mistake. We shouldn't be here." Before anyone could respond, The ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the monitors displayed chaotic data streams. Outside, the glowing nebulae seemed to swirl faster, forming a vortex that pulled the Aurora toward its center. Ethan gripped the controls tightly, trying to stabilize the ship, but it was no use. The pull was too strong. "What's happening?" Rachel shouted over the noise. "I don't know," Ethan replied, his voice strained. "It's like the environment itself is alive." Grace clung to a nearby console, her eyes fixed on the swirling vortex. "Maybe it's testing us, seeing how we react." The ship was dragged closer and closer to the vortex until everything went white. For a moment, Ethan thought they had been destroyed. But when the light faded, they found themselves in an even stranger place, a vast chamber surrounded by towering walls made of the same glowing crystal structures they had seen earlier. In the center of the room stood a massive figure, its form shimmering with radiant energy. "You have passed the first trial," the figure said, its voice resonating through the chamber. "But there are more challenges ahead." "Trial," Ethan repeated, his voice sharp with disbelief. "What do you mean, trial?" The figure turned its gaze toward him, its presence overwhelming. "To cross the edge is to prove your worth. Only those who demonstrate courage, wisdom, and unity may proceed. Fail, and you will be cast back, or worse." Grace stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from us?" The figure paused, as if considering her question. "Your species stands at a crossroads. Beyond this point lies knowledge and power, but also destruction. You must decide whether humanity is ready to bear the weight of what lies ahead." Rachel shook her head, her voice trembling. "We're not ready. We're just people. How can we possibly handle something like this?" The figure studied her for a long moment before responding. "That is for you to discover." Without warning, the chamber began to shift. The walls dissolved into streams of light, revealing new landscapes beyond. The Aurora was pulled forward again, moving deeper into the alien expanse. As they traveled, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being tested, not just as individuals, but as representatives of humanity itself. "Whatever happens next," he said quietly, "we stick together. That's the only way we'll get through this." Grace and Rachel nodded, their expressions grim but determined. They didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. The journey beyond the edge was far from over. The Aurora continued its journey through the alien expanse, each new landscape more surreal than the last. Towering spires of crystal jutted out from floating islands, their surfaces glowing faintly as if alive. Rivers of liquid light flowed across the void, twisting and turning in impossible patterns. The crew felt small, insignificant, in the face of such grandeur. Yet, with every step forward, the sense of being watched grew stronger. Ethan stared at the monitors, his brow furrowed. "These energy readings, they're off the charts. It's like the entire area is alive, reacting to us." Grace nodded, her eyes scanning the data. "It's not just reacting. It's testing us. Every time we move, something changes. The environment shifts, almost as if it's adapting." Rachel sat quietly in the corner, her arms wrapped around herself. She hadn't spoken much since they entered this strange world, but her unease was palpable. "This feels like a trap," she muttered finally. "Every choice we make seems to lead us deeper into whatever this is." "It might be," Ethan admitted, "but we don't have a choice now. We've come too far to turn back." As they moved further, the ship came to a halt near a massive structure that seemed to pulse with an inner light. Its surface was covered in intricate carvings, symbols that glowed softly in the dim light. Grace approached one of the walls, running her fingers over the markings. "These symbols, they're similar to the ones we decoded earlier. Whoever built this place used the same language. Or whoever's guiding us now," Ethan added grimly. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it became almost unbearable. From the structure emerged another shimmering figure, larger and more imposing than the first. Its presence radiated power, and its voice echoed in their minds. "You seek knowledge," the figure said, its tone both commanding and curious. "But knowledge demands sacrifice. Are you willing to give up what you hold dear for the sake of understanding?" Ethan hesitated, unsure how to respond. What did it mean by sacrifice? Would they lose the ship, their lives, or something even greater? Grace stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "We didn't come here to destroy ourselves. We came to learn, to grow. If humanity is to survive, we need answers." The figure studied her for a long moment before turning its gaze to Rachel. "And you? Do you share their resolve?" Rachel swallowed hard, her hands trembling. I don't know. All I know is that I'm scared. But maybe that's part of the test, to face our fears." The figure nodded, as if satisfied with her answer. Then it turned to Ethan. "You are the one who pushed past the edge. What drives you?" Ethan took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I want to know the truth, not just for myself, but for everyone. Humanity deserves to understand its place in the universe, even if it's painful." For a moment, the figure was silent. Then it raised a hand, and the chamber changed once again. The glowing symbols on the walls began to shift, forming images that played out like a story. They saw glimpses of ancient civilizations rising and falling, of wars fought over resources and ideologies, of species driven to extinction by forces beyond their control. "This is your legacy," the figure said. "The history of those who came before you. Learn from it, or repeat their mistakes." The images faded, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Ethan felt a weight settle over him, heavier than anything he had ever known. The truth wasn't just about knowledge, it was about responsibility. "We'll do it," he said finally, his voice firm. "Whatever it takes." The figure nodded once more, then vanished, leaving them alone in the chamber. Outside, the alien landscape shifted again, pulling them toward the next challenge. As the Aurora drifted forward, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer just explorers. They were participants in something far bigger than themselves. "What happens now?" Rachel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan glanced at her, then at Grace. "We keep going. Whatever comes next, we face it together." The Aurora drifted into a new region of the alien expanse, one that felt darker and colder than the places they had seen before. The glowing colors and shimmering structures were gone, replaced by jagged rocks and swirling clouds of ash. It was as if they had crossed from a world of light into one of shadow. Ethan gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. The ship's sensors flickered, struggling to make sense of the chaotic environment. "This place feels wrong," Grace said softly, her voice trembling. "Like it's trying to push us away." Rachel nodded, clutching the edge of her seat. "It's like we're not supposed to be here. Like we've stepped into something we can't handle." Ethan didn't respond. He couldn't deny the unease gnawing at him. But he also knew there was no turning back. They had come too far to give up now. "Whatever this is, it's part of the test," he said finally. "We have to keep moving." As they ventured deeper, the ship was suddenly surrounded by a swarm of dark shapes, shadowy creatures that darted through the void, their forms shifting and twisting in ways that made them hard to look at directly. The crew froze, watching as the creatures circled the Aurora, their movements erratic and unpredictable. "What are they?" Rachel whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know," Ethan admitted, "but they're not friendly." The creatures began slamming against the ship's hull, causing it to shudder violently. Alarms blared as the shields struggled to hold under the assault. Grace rushed to the console, frantically typing commands to reinforce the defenses. "We can't stay here," she shouted. "They'll tear us apart." Ethan clenched his jaw, scanning the monitors for a way out. Then he noticed something, a faint glow in the distance, barely visible through the chaos. There, he said, pointing. If we can reach that, maybe we'll find safety. With the ship's engines straining, Ethan guided the Aurora toward the light. The creatures followed, their attacks growing more intense. For a moment, it seemed like they wouldn't make it, but just as the shields were about to fail, the ship broke free of the swarm and entered the glowing area. Inside, they found themselves in a massive dome made of translucent material. The air was calm, almost peaceful, a stark contrast to the storm outside. In the center of the dome stood another figure, smaller and less imposing than the ones they had encountered before. Its form was humanoid, though its features were indistinct, as if it were made of mist. "You have faced your fears," the figure said, its voice soft but clear. "But fear is only the beginning. To move forward, you must confront the truth about yourselves and your species." "What truth?" Ethan asked, his voice tight with frustration. "You keep talking in riddles. Just tell us what you want from us." The figure turned to him, its gaze piercing. "Humanity's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness: curiosity. You seek knowledge without understanding the cost. Tell me, Ethan Cole, would you risk everything, even the survival of your kind, for answers?" Ethan hesitated, the weight of the question pressing down on him. He glanced at Grace and Rachel, seeing the same uncertainty reflected in their eyes. Finally, he spoke. "Yes, because ignorance is worse than any danger. If humanity is to grow, we need to face the truth, no matter how painful." The figure studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. But remember, once you cross this threshold, there is no going back." With a wave of its hand, the dome dissolved, revealing a vast portal shimmering with energy. Beyond it lay an unknown destination, one that promised both wonder and peril. The crew exchanged tense looks, each of them silently weighing the risks. "We've come this far," Grace said finally, her voice steady despite her fear. "Let's finish what we started." Rachel swallowed hard but nodded in agreement. "All right, let's do it." Ethan took a deep breath, gripping the controls tightly. "Here goes nothing." With that, he guided the Aurora into the portal, leaving behind the trials of the edge and stepping into the unknown. Whatever awaited them on the other side, they were ready, or as ready as they could be. The Aurora emerged from the portal into a breathtaking yet unsettling landscape. The sky was filled with swirling galaxies, their colors shifting and blending like an endless painting. Below them stretched a vast plain of glowing crystals, each one pulsing faintly as if alive. Strange structures dotted the horizon, massive towers made of light and shadow that seemed to hum with energy. It was beautiful, but there was an undercurrent of danger, as if the very air carried a warning. This is impossible," Grace whispered, her voice trembling with awe. "It's like we've stepped outside the universe itself." Rachel clutched the edge of her seat, her eyes wide with fear. "We shouldn't be here. This place. It's too big, too strange. What if we can't handle it?" Ethan didn't answer. He stared out the viewport, his mind racing. The journey had brought them to the edge of understanding, and perhaps beyond it. But the question remained, were they ready for what came next? As they drifted closer to the surface, the ship's sensors picked up movement. Figures began to emerge from the glowing plain. Tall, humanoid beings with translucent forms that shimmered like liquid light. They moved gracefully, their presence both calming and unnerving. One of them approached the Aurora, its face featureless yet somehow expressive. "You have crossed the threshold," the being said, its voice resonating in their minds. "You now stand before the truth. Are you prepared to see it?" Ethan exchanged glances with Grace and Rachel. There was no turning back now. "Yes," he said firmly. "Show us." The being raised a hand, and the world around them shifted. Images flooded their minds, visions of humanity's past, present, and potential future. They saw civilizations rising and falling, wars fought over greed and fear, moments of triumph and despair. but they also saw glimpses of hope. Humanity reaching for the stars, learning to coexist, striving to grow. Then the visions turned darker. They saw threats lurking in the cosmos, rogue AI entities, predatory species, forces capable of wiping out entire worlds. And they saw the edge, not as a barrier, but as a shield, placed there by ancient protectors to give humanity time to evolve. This is why the edge exists, the being explained. To protect you until you are ready. Beyond this point lies freedom, but also chaos. Your survival depends on your choices. Grace stepped forward, her voice steadied despite the weight of what she had seen. So it's up to us to decide whether humanity is ready. The being nodded. You are the first to cross the edge in centuries. Your actions will shape the path ahead. Rachel shook her head, tears streaming down her face. How can we make this decision? We're just people. You are more than that, the being replied. You represent the courage, curiosity, and resilience of your species. Trust yourselves. Ethan took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. We'll do it. We'll take the risk. Humanity deserves the chance to grow, to face the challenges, and make our own mistakes. The being studied him for a long moment, then nodded. With a wave of its hand, the shield of the edge dissolved, opening the way for humanity to explore the cosmos. As the Aurora drifted further into the unknown, Ethan felt a mix of emotions, fear, excitement, and a deep sense of responsibility. They had uncovered the truth, but the journey was far from over. Whatever lay ahead, humanity would face it together. Grace smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the glow of the alien landscape. This is just the beginning. Rachel wiped away her tears, determination replacing her fear. Yeah, let's make it count. Ethan guided the ship onward, his heart pounding with anticipation. The galaxy stretched before them, vast and full of possibilities. For better or worse, the future was theirs to shape.